Hello again, everyone. World of Warships Wednesday it is. Today I'm going to bring a pretty good battle with my Bogue.
Group 4, ready for takeoff.
So, first thing you'll notice here, we've got a Zuiho and a Hosho. Zuiho and a Hosho on the other team, and on our team for carriers, it's myself and the Bogue, and a Langley on the other carrier. I have got the 2 fighters and 1 bomber air battle group for the Bogue, and the fighters really end up doing a good job for me. There's a little look at the teams if you want to see what everybody's driving. So I've got 1 fighter group down in the center, just watching that center spot there. And one of my standard tactics with carriers is to just get my ship moving, give it about 5 waypoints every so often, just so the ship is always moving and I don't become a stationary target for either torpedoes or bombers, or even for a destroyer or another ship that moves in. So first enemy contact, from my perspective, is that fighter group all the way up the western line. So I'm going to send both of my fighter groups over there, try to wipe out fighters early on, is best plan. And he obviously sees my fighter groups coming and turns around. So we'll play a little game of chess and chicken here while we see who's going to commit first. And now I see, oh, look at that, there's a torpedo squadron coming up behind his fighters. Well, I'll just let his fighters go. And now a second torpedo squadron, and in a moment, a bomber squadron also appears. So I've got 2 fighter squadrons down here against, right now, 2 torpedo squadrons. There's that bomber squadron. So I'll let his fighters go, because all they can do is scout, which they are going to do. And now, if you look, I've got my 2 fighter squadrons are holding up 3 torpedo and 2 bomber squadrons of the enemy team down here in this corner. So that's pretty good. So they're going to do what damage they can. And we've got a friendly cruiser down there all the way into their section as well. We've got one squadron wiped out so far. And the thing with the Zuiho and the Hosho is they've got 4 aircraft squadrons. I mean, 4 aircraft per squadron. So now I know his fighters have gotten up and have identified there's my carrier. That's not really such a big concern for me, but the big concern really is the enemy team, if they're paying attention, will have noticed that we have nothing right now between me and that entire side of the map down there on the western side. There's myself and then nothing until the enemy. And now they're seeing where all of our friendly ships are up there with the other carrier. So it is kind of a concern, and I should have only sent 1 of my fighter groups after him, but I was paying attention to my bombers getting close enough on this Wyoming. They got a pretty good hit. So we've got a cruiser moving up the center. And now it's time to get my back over to the western side of the map here, because it's just been too long that I haven't been paying attention over on the western side, and you'll see the enemy carriers have not been idle. There they are. They're in, and they're just a little bit too far in front of where my fighters are to be able to get to them. So I pretty much, at this point, yeah, I'm going to take bomb hits. My fighters aren't going to wipe out 2 bomb squadrons that fast, especially when they aren't catching up to them in time. Not in a tail chase. Maybe if they had a head-on. But it's alright, it's not going to kill me.
Concentrate fire on the designated target.
There we go. There's both. Wait for both bombers to make their strike, and then use the repair button.
Problem solved, sir.
That's 1 bomb squadron wiped out. And now we'll finish off their fighters. Finally. Their fighting scouts. Finally wiped out. My bombers have recovered, despite the burning flight deck. There's another kill for our friendly carrier. He's doing pretty good with his torpedo planes. Alright, so I've got my fighters set up in a... Now what I'm going to do here, in order to not have both fighter groups tied up, is give one of them a 5-point patrol pattern and move the other one over more towards the center and patrol there, so we can see while the rest of our team has got the eastern side covered. I'm going to use my fighters for scouting at both of the approach points on either side of the western island. Now, I can't do too much about my entire team being all the way on one side of the map, but what I can do is try to at least fill in the gaps where my team isn't.
Group 4, we're under attack.
Now, I almost missed out here, and what ends up happening is I basically steal this kill, but... Sorry about that there, Josh 3505.
We've destroyed an enemy cruiser.
But I've got to take care of the biggest threat to myself every time it presents itself, so... So I'm going to bring my fighters a little close to home, just make sure that the enemy attackers haven't snuck back around again, and then I'll reset them back to their center positions. Reset my carriers 5 waypoints here, just to keep it moving. And now focus again on another cruiser coming up the center point. Pretty even in the score so far, team to team.
Group 2, standing by for instructions. Over. Ready for takeoff.
And look at these torpedoes in the middle there on the cruiser. Boom. Nice torpedoes, Josh. Alright, so my fighters are just kind of hanging out.
Group 4, airborne. Group 4, standing
Kind
by
of
for instructions.
ready to go
Over.
when a target presents itself or when an enemy ship decides to come around that corner. For whatever reason, I think the enemy fleet recognized where our team was coming over the east, and they all pushed the east to counter that, so they never really did come up on the west side here, where they really had an unimpeded attack pattern. Or unimpeded path all the way back into our rear area. It's a little too busy in the center there, so I'm going to send my bombers around the edge of the map, and there's a carrier. And I see a carrier, I want to go bomb it.
Group 2, we're under attack. Group 2, returning.
Now my fighters were getting a little too far into the middle of all that potential AAA with all those ships down there. So I pull them back out a little bit and then get them after the enemy torpedo squadron that's already fired torpedoes into our battleship there. But I can at least savage them a little bit until they can get home.
Reached.
They're getting a little too close to the AAA again, so again I'm going to pull my fighters off, go after the other.
Group 3, awaiting instructions. Group 2.
We're taking the B point in the middle, which will start swinging the tickets back over to our side. Time to get my bombers in on target. Time for a manual attack. Manual attack by holding down Alt, which gives you a much tighter little target to drop. But with the added difficulty of it doesn't move, and you can see I pulled it a little bit too far ahead of that carrier. Now 2 fighter squadrons get after my bombers here, and instead of sending my fighters in and probably losing them all, I decide I'll hold on to my fighters for now trying to set up a manual attack on my fighters with my fighters here, but they didn't get turned around fast enough, so I decided to hold off. And what I'm trying to do is wait for my bomber squadron to head back north, and then I'm going to bring my fighters down in a manual attack. But then the enemy torpedo squadron shows up, so I'm taking a lot of damage with my bombers right now. But they do at least fight back. They strike back coming up here. There we go. That was actually a tail gunner kill with my bomber squadrons. Now with my 2 fighter squadrons, I'm going to get them in on the enemy fighters and save what's left of my bomber squadron there.
Awaiting instructions. Standing by for instructions. Over.
Look, it's Wildcats.
Group 4, returning to ship.
Now, I didn't have the chance to do it in this battle, but an extremely effective tactic with the Bogue and any other carrier. I've only gotten as far as the Bogue, so I can't really speak for carriers beyond it. Unfortunately, here this guy just had no chance to get away from that.
Waypoint reached.
But an extremely effective tactic with, if you've got 2 fighter groups at least, is to get your fighter groups tangled up with an enemy fighter group, and when they're stuck in that little dogfight they get into, you bring your second or more fighter group and do a manual attack run, and they will wipe the enemy squadron out almost every time. Not always, but very nearly. They will just annihilate them. It uses about half the squadron's entire ammo load, so you can't just do it repeatedly, but you can do it enough. So right now I'm up to 26 air kills, 3 good bomb hits with 3 fires started, not too bad. So I'm trying to guard the battleship here, because he's just in between those 2 islands there, he's just asking to get torpedoed. Especially with it being only our battleship left on our team, and then the other carrier who's out of airplanes at this point.
Group 2, we're under attack.
And he's just a little too tight in on the side of the island there. He's kind of anviled with the island. There's way too many aircraft for me to cover.
Target destroyed.
Although my guys are doing pretty good work.
Instructions. Over.
But I can't stop everything that's getting to our battleship there.
Waypoint reached.
Our victory is in sight.
Waiting instructions. Group 2, taking fire. Group 2, target destroyed.
My fighters are doing some real good work now.
Group 4, approaching.
My bombers could have had a second kill for me there, but unfortunately they all missed.
Target destroyed. Group 2, standing by for instructions.
Now, something I definitely should have done here and didn't think to do until, well, I didn't think to do it at all. But what I would definitely do in the future here is move my carrier much farther down south, closer to the battle, so my fighters and bombers have much less travel time to get back and reload.
Group 2, awaiting
But
instructions.
it didn't really matter. We're up to... Our battleship is now king of the sea down there in the south, with my 2 fighter groups to cover him against 2 carriers.
We're under attack. Group 3,
We're all set. It was a little dicey there for a few minutes, but our battleship really turned things around.
Group 2, standing by for instructions. Over.
You can see the score. It's right on the cusp of winning here. So I end up with 42 air kills in the battle. No foreshadowing there, right before the torpedo squadron took off from the carrier. Couldn't quite get locked onto him yet, but as soon as he gets airborne and heads towards our battleship, my fighters just pounce on him. Five F4Fs against one torpedo plane. Not going to last very long. So now it's just a matter of time. Are we going to get to 1,000 points? Or is he going to sink 2 carriers first? What's going to happen first? Either way, it's not going to take very long. Of course, even with a battleship, you're going to get to 1,000 tickets before he's going to sink 2 ships. So, thank you all for watching. Hopefully I'll be able to show a little hammer and anvil battle with my fighter squadrons here soon. But I was really pleased with this battle, all the air kills I got. So, thank you very much for watching. We'll see you next Wednesday.